Hello and welcome back. This is another in the 10-minute tip series of recorded programs for credit and collection professionals. This one is titled Laws Governing the Credit Department's Activities. My name is Michael Dennis. Let's go ahead and jump in. Introduction. There are actually many laws governing interactions between creditor companies and consumers, but there are relatively few laws governing sales made from one business to another. This presentation today will focus only on laws and regulations governing business-to-business sales and business-to-business debt collection. We're going to talk about a number of ideas, concepts, including bankruptcy regulations, antitrust, laws governing credit granting and collection, usury laws, secured transactions, just to name a few. I'm going to start with a discussion of the Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the ECOA. I'm starting here because it's the most controversial. The ECOA is a federal statute that prohibits discrimination in credit granting on the basis of things like race, color, religion, national origin, gender, marital status, or age. The Justice Department enforces the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. It applies to all companies that extend credit, and it applies to the people that are making credit decisions. The ECOA applies to any extension of credit, including those made to small businesses, corporations, partnerships, and trusts. And that's why it's controversial, because many people believe that the ECOA regulations only apply to consumer credit granting. What you should know about the ECOA. Under the ECOA, a credit grantor must provide notice to an applicant company of action taken with respect to a request for credit within 30 days of receipt of that application. After that, the applicant company has 60 days from receipt of our adverse action notification to request a more detailed written explanation. In turn, the credit grantor must provide a written reason for the decision to decline credit within 30 days of a formal request for that information from an applicant. In addition, under the Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the creditor company must retain records about applicant companies that have been denied credit, including the reason or reasons why those companies were denied credit. So another controversy arises when I address the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. The FDCPA is a federal regulation that regulates companies that are engaged in the business of collecting debts on behalf of their clients, in other words, collection agencies. As a general statement, the FDCPA exempts creditor companies that are collecting their own accounts receivable. However, if your company uses certain collection tactics, then you're required to comply with the FDCPA. For example, if you use another name, any name other than your company's name when you're trying to collect from a customer on a business debt, then you trigger the requirements of the FDCPA. The FDCPA continued. So as you know, the FDCPA is a federal law. In the United States, the 50 states are allowed to pass their own laws, and some of those state laws directly mirror the federal FDCPA, and some go beyond it in the context of providing protections for borrowers. In fact, some of those state laws go beyond the FDCPA in limiting the actions of business-to-business creditors collecting from their own customers. I'll say it again. Rather than the FDCPA's prohibitions and limitations on what third-party collection agencies do, some states' laws that mirror the FDCPA apply the same restrictions on collectors collecting money owed directly to them by their own customers. With this in mind, I strongly recommend that creditor companies behave as though the FDCPA applies to them. So there are a number of prohibited debt collection related activities under the FDCPA you should be aware of. One of them is calling customers at unreasonable hours. Another is adding additional fees or interest that weren't part of your original agreement with your customer. Another is confiscating property despite not having a specific legal right to do so. Lying about how much a debtor owes is prohibited under FDCPA. Pretending to be a lawyer in an effort to intimidate a customer or debtor is also prohibited. Pretending to represent a government agency is another prohibited activity under FDCPA, and making false threats about suing the debtor, having them arrested, or sending them to jail are also all prohibited under the federal law. Usury laws. So creditor companies may want to charge interest on past due balances. Interest charged on certain types of debts is regulated in the United States by state law. Under applicable state law, interest charged to customers cannot exceed a maximum rate as described by that state law. Usury involves charging interest on a loan or a debt higher than the maximum amount permitted by state law. And creditors should be aware that these state usury laws typically include significant financial penalties for companies that violate usury laws. Becoming a secured creditor. Any company, any creditor can become a secured creditor. Now, the process of becoming a secured creditor is complex, but fundamentally the process begins with convincing a customer to provide you with some form of collateral or some pledge of asset that the customer owns in support of their request for open account unsecured purchases. The reality is that secured creditors enjoy a clear advantage over unsecured creditors if a customer files for bankruptcy protection. The problem is that many customers will not allow an unsecured trade creditor to become a secured creditor. Why? Well, for a variety of reasons. A typical reason might be because their bank prohibits them from agreeing to allow any other creditor to become a secured creditor. Well, thank you. Thank you for attending. Thank you for joining me for this short presentation. By the way, I hope you found it interesting. And if you're interested in hearing the entire 1-hour on-demand program on this topic, please contact my sponsor, the Wisconsin Credit Association. And please have yourself a great day. Take care. Bye, everyone.